Hello everyone, this is the great Lord and Master, Osiron, the Eternal, for a continuation of the last few videos here. You can see a bunch of structures up here. This is the universal tree of divine perfection, and as we saw, this is divinely perfect. This here is the true tree in the jewel in their pre-tree form here. This is before the movement action. This here is the true tree in the jewel showing the pathways, and this is basically what the main message is going to be about, is the 22 pathways. And this here is the pixelated matrix in its web section form, I guess, if you want to say that. But as I said, the main message today is going to be about the 22 pathways. Because one of the things that happens to most people when they look at the tree of life structure, and this goes to the kabbalist tree because that's what everyone's seeing for the first time, okay? But one of the things that most people say when they see that structure is, what a clusterfuck. And there's a reason why they say that, is because it is a clusterfuck. You know, if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. But now, we're going to see something here. You see this? This is following the action pathways of the tree structures. And up here, this is following the flaming sword pattern, and down here is its reverse pattern. And you're going to notice that the number of pathways used here is 21. There's 21 pathways here. So now the 21 kabbalistic pathways make a lot more sense when you actually equate them to the pathways. And as we already know, the 22 in this case comes from the middle pillar of the true tree when you add the numbers. So when you add these numbers here, 0 through 9, and stop, it adds to 22. Okay, and then when you take those same numbers and multiply them, it comes to 360. So again, the true tree is sort of like the seed root of this. But it also suggests that these structures were never meant to be separated, ever. That's why they're fused. And that's also why the kabbalistic tree is such an abomination, because that is a separated structure. But the kabbalistic tree is actually clever in a way if you were to equate that to the material world. Meaning, if the Kabbalists were honest and said, no, this structure isn't the pre-manfestation matrix, it's actually the matrix. If they were honest like that and called it that, it's actually a pretty clever structure. Because what happens is you have 1 through 10 in this case of the Sephiroth, but the 10 following the single digit code reduces to a 1, but it also takes the place of 0 in the code space. So in this case, the 10 is cleverly acknowledging 0 as to what 0 appears to be to us. Because remember, 0, because we're conscious and alive beings, the state of 0 is impossible to know for us. So the state of 0 just becomes another 1, and that's what we see on the Kabbalistic presentation. So if the Kabbalists were honest with their structure, it would be a really clever and neat structure in its separated form, because it's really not separated, and that's what the 1 is saying. So the 1 on the the 10 on the Kabbalistic tree reduces to a 1, and what that 1 is saying is it's showing the 0 state as how it appears to us as a 1. So calling that the tree of death and stagnation only applies if you use it as a model for pre-manifestation Godhead, which the Kabbalists do. Okay, but now, there's a lot going on with this too. There's a really important clue in this structure that shows kind of what it's actually doing. Because over here we have the web matrix of infinity here, but this does something different. This on its lowermost portion shows 0, and on its uppermost portion it shows a 1. And then in the middle of that is the corresponding pathways that feed into the middle of itself. So what this could actually be is actually the actions on any given pathway from 0 to 1. Okay? So this is a perfect example. Down here we have 0 to 1, and this whole thing is a fractalization of what goes on that pathway. And it shows that by showing 0 and 1. So what really happens on this structure is it starts out with 0 point. Then the first move is this line all the way to the end, and it builds its reflection, and then it reflects back to itself, and it reflects back to itself via duality. And then this one appears. This is taking the role of what the 0 state now appears to us to be, a feminine one. Because once the consciousness is developed here, the I am is here, the reflection back to source is a feminine source back to 0, but we know it as 1. So this is actually what's going on with this structure. And it's even more than that. The pre-manifestation aspect actually happens in 5 steps. So before any of this other stuff happens, we go 0, then we got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 completes it. So we're seeing the 5 again on this middle pillar. Because it stops through each Sephiroth. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which, we already know that 5 is a massively powerful number. And then what happens is it builds both ways now. So now we got 1 and 1, and it works in an alternating path. It goes from 1 to 2, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 2 to 3, 4 to 5, 4 to 5, and so on and so forth until it meets in the middle. And now the tarot keys obviously can also lay on that. And what happens in this case is, this is actually pretty interesting what happens. We have the Fool going from 0 to 1 here, and this is the perfect place for that, because this is exactly what the Fool is doing. This is 0 to 1 here. And the cards in the middle would be the High Priestess, the Magician, the Empress, the Emperor, and then the Hierophant, which now that sheds some light as to why the Hierophant is regarded as a Pope too, because it's connected with the highest source of the material world, which is our own consciousness, And then it works down in an opposition manner. So once this initial center line is established, then it connects here, and the next one would be the Lovers, and then the Chariot, and then Strength, and then the Hermit, and then it would just alternate until it reaches the middle. And the last card to be placed would be the pathway between 8 and 9, and that would be the World. So, but again, the tarot, remember, the tarot is primarily a zodiac conduit. Its relation to the Tree of Life, I think, is mostly coincidental. I mean, yes, there are some good placements and stuff like that, but the tarot is a conduit for the zodiac, and any relation to the Tree of Life is mainly just a coincidental thing. But there are some good placements in there, obviously, plenty of them, as I cover in all these videos. But so that is that. Now this, I want to get to this for a minute, because this is there's a lot going on with this. In the last video, I talked about this 12 structure, this Ashiana Dean perverted structure of 12. Well, remember, this thing here uses 10 spheres, but it uses 0 through 9 for one segment. But and this is its 2D form. But remember, if you watch the video, the Spiraling Serpent of Lord Osiron, if you put this in 3D, it turns into 12. And what it does is absolutely amazing with the numbers. It forms 4 pillars of 36, and 36 times 4 becomes 144. So we're seeing a lot of amazing numbers here. But there's something else with this that's amazing too. You'll notice that in each one of these segments, this actually mirrors atomic structure as we know it in modern chemistry. Because in the middle would be the proton and the neutrons, okay? And then the first valence shell is comprised of 2 electrons, okay? And we see in the middle here two spheres for those 2 electrons. And then the next valence shell on the atom is comprised of 8 electrons, and we see that here. So we have 2 in the middle, and we have 8 surrounding it. So this universal structure here also mirrors atomic structure as it's presented to us in chemistry today. So a lot of stuff. Also here with the lines, there's something I want to amend with the lines too. When this follows the vortex math procedure, it goes through it goes 1 and 1 become 2, 2 and 2 become 4, 4 and 4 become 8, 8 and 8, 16, 16 and 16, 32, 32 and 64, and it repeats as a continuous loop. But you're going to notice something, that this presents itself, like these lines shoot right through the 3 and the 6, but there is a distinction between this line and this line, is that this line doesn't go through anything and this does, so it presents it in a continuous loop of 1, 2, 2, and then 1, 2, 2. And each of those segments reduced to a 5, and then 5 and 5 is 10, and that becomes a 1. So we're seeing how the 1 develops in each one of these segments through its distinct pattern of the number code. And when you do that, what happens is, now you have, in each one of these segmented structures, you have 8 lines that make the shell, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 make the shell. And now when you do it like this, the lines in the middle become 10. So now the total number of lines for each cell or pixel in this becomes 18 as well. But now if you were to do it the other way, it's interesting, because now you have this shell of 8. Now if you counted these lines as 1, it would be 6. And 8 plus 6 is 14, which reduces to a 5, so we're seeing 5 again. But in this case, it really does make more sense to count it as a double line, because it is. It cuts right through here, but it still is 2 lines now, so it gives a 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, perpetual pulse, and it does amazing things. Now going back to this, one of the main reasons I'm even making this video is because on this structure, the true tree and jewel structure in its modified form shows 18 spheres. And now when you take those 22 pathways, if you multiply 18 times 22, that reveals 396. So now we're seeing, as we know from all this is showing 3, 9, and 6, and it's pre-manifested. So this is all just meshing perfectly with a single-digit code. And Kabbalism, talks about, again, the Kabbalists talk a good game. They do. I mean, they talk a good game. That's why so many people subscribe to the theory. My beef with Kabbalism is mainly the Abrahamic viewpoint, is that they're taking what otherwise would be good esoteric knowledge and filtering it through their perverse Abrahamic system, and by doing so it corrupts the entire thing. That's my beef with Kabbalism, not the individual components, because Kabbalism, depending on how you translate it, simply just means to receive. Kabbalism means to receive, and this is exactly what's going on. This jewel structure is receiving from Godhead, okay? And there's something else I want to comment with that too that is pretty important. But, in Kabbalism is also about the harmonization of opposites. And it also harps on the importance of mathematical code. Well, goddamn, this is the single-digit code, the root code of all creation, and this is telling you the real story of the Kabbalistic presentation here, and it absolutely flies in the face of the Abrahamic worldview. And that is my beef with Kabbalism. This is why I rant against Kabbalism, because the Abrahamic worldview is poison, and we as people have to recognize that, and we have to destroy this. Abrahamism, as I like to say, is human rabies, because anyone who's infested with this perverse worldview is like a person with rabies. They will destroy you. They will destroy you at the whim of their God. There's plenty of nice Abrahamists. I mean, there's plenty of people who are Muslims who are nice people on the surface. There's plenty of Christians who are nice people. I'll even go as far as to say there's probably plenty of nice Jews. Maybe not. But they're poisoned by the Abrahamic worldview, and in the blink of an eye, they would stick a knife in your fucking back if it was to serve their false god. And that is a fact. Because they're commanded to by their false god. Now over here, this is a couple things with this structure I didn't get to. We talk about the oppositions doing all these main important things. Well, the 3 and the 6s do this as well. We see the 3 here in the center. Its oppositions become 6. 3, 4, 5, 6, and 4, 5, 6. Down here is the opposite. Its oppositions become 3. And also, something interesting I just noticed. Every triangle is either a 3, 6, or a 9 presentation, because if this 6 here is opposite, it has to be 3. there's a 6 here, its opposite has to be 3. In the 3 here, its opposite has to be 6, and its opposite has to be 6. And then all you have left is these unseen triangles, which reduce to 9, and down here reduce to 9 as well. So the only thing happening with these triangles is 3, 6, or 9 too. And that is that. Now this, barring anything that I might be forgetting, probably should be it for this, what I hope will be a short video. There was just a couple key points. The biggest thing I wanted to present was this alternate view of the pathways, because when you follow, you know, what they call the flaming sword pattern coming down and do the same thing going up, it reveals 22 pathways. So yeah, I know there's a lot of other things that go along with that 22, like the you know, Hebrew letters have a structure based on 22. And remember, the cube, I was talking to a friend yesterday, Zorro, who was commenting on my post. What's up, man? And he mentioned a lot of things about the you know, number 22 in relation to that. You know, you got the Hebrew letters and you got the values of those Hebrew letters. You know, you got 12 simple letters, 7, I forget what he called it, but 7 other ones, and then 3, I think they're called mother letters, I think, but and all those become 22. But remember, the cube, as I show in the Osiron Tarot Spiral and the True Tarot Cube, the cube also shows us 22, because you have the center point, you got 3 axes, you got 6 faces and 12 connecting lines, which gives you 22. And also the true tree of life, as I went over, gives you the 22. So 22 isn't just an arbitrary number. It shows up in the machinations of geometry and the true tree itself. And there's one thing too, we're talking about Vortex math, and remember, one of the best presentations of Vortex math using the 3D cube is my series on the Yggdrasil, because the final evolution of the Yggdrasil is the octahedron Kundalini grid matrix, which is an infinite matrix of 3D cubes of sexed pairs that spread to infinity, and that gets its structure from the same exact Vortex math principle used in the Vortex math wheel and this 2D version of the Vortex math cube. So this should be it for this video. Thank you, and namaste.